The propane furnaces they like to put in your RV aren't always the most reliable or efficient things in the world. Trying to stay warm in your RV during the dead of winter can be a real challenge for some. RV electrical systems aren't really built for space heaters to be used everywhere. While propane heaters like this one might work all right in a garage like this one, they're not safe to use in an RV most of the time. And again, they're also just not very efficient. They're gonna rip through propane. So that leaves you with diesel heaters. There are a few other options, but diesel heaters have been a very popular add-on or upgrade or replacement for RV heat. These standalone units are absolutely great if you're trying to, one, supplement heat, or two, if you're trying to replace your propane furnace and you're not living in sub-zero temperatures. While they do make diesel heaters that can completely replace your RV furnace, in other words, they're at least 35,000 BTU, these are really popular for supplemental heat. Unless you want to add two of these things, then they would absolutely heat your entire RV better than your RV furnace. Today we're looking at one that actually caught my eye. This is the Bouge RV. I've done a few reviews on some of their products, like their portable chest freezer. That thing was absolutely awesome. I actually personally use that thing every time we go camping or when we travel. It's usually in the trunk of the car. Bouge RV has been making some pretty good stuff in the RV space. I know it's a name you probably haven't heard of before, but they are making their way into the RV space, which I love and I fully support because the RV space is currently monopolized by a few different companies, so it's nice to see some other people dipping their toes in the water. Bouge RV did send me this heater to review. This is not a paid endorsement or anything like that. I'm going to tell you the ins and outs of what I find about this thing. We're going to fire it up. We're going to go over all the features. And I'll tell you why I think this is actually a better option than the cheap $80 Chinese diesel heaters. Does this one still come out of China? Absolutely, but not everything that comes out of China is the same. So let's see what makes this one different. Besides the obvious that it's not a big orange ammo can looking thing, this looks to be a little bit better built. First things first, let's talk about what's included in here. And it is literally everything you need. Every time you install a diesel heater in an RV, it's not going to be a straightforward thing. Every RV is going to be a little bit different, especially depending on where you install this thing. You might choose to install it in the front compartment of a fifth wheel, outside the RV altogether. No matter where you put it, you're going to need to find a way to get the heat hose that is pumping heat out into the RV, and you're going to need to make sure the exhaust is pointing out of the RV where you're not going to be breathing in the carbon monoxide from the combustion. This is no different than any other diesel heater in that aspect. You still have to get this thing installed. It's not going to be like a direct replacement for your furnace where you just hook it up and go. It is going to take some installation, and every one again is going to be a little bit different. Now, as far as power supply, you actually have the ability to connect this directly to a 12 or 24 volt battery. This will operate on both. It has the standard 12 volt plug here. You can also power it from here. And this one also includes a 120 volt adapter, so you could actually just take this and plug it into a standard receptacle and power it that way. But again, this will run on 12 or 24 volts, and you have adapters that come with it that will let you hook it up to whatever situation you have. On what I'm going to call the back of the unit here, you do have a little thermostat and control center here. I will say FedEx really handled my package, and the box was all damaged, and it did break one of the little ears off of the clip here for the thermostat to stay hooked up here. I'm not going to knock Bouge RV for that. That was on FedEx, but I will say these little plastic ears were a little bit brittle. It doesn't seem like it took much to break that off, so now that's kind of just dangling there. Nothing I can't fix with a piece of Velcro or something. You also have the inlet for the air. Air comes in here, gets warmed and blown out. I will tell you, if you are installing one of these, you should get a piece of flexible duct and actually run this inside too, so you're not constantly trying to heat frigid air. You can actually bring some already partially heated air back and heat that instead. But that's a whole different topic for an install. Just thought I'd throw that in there for you guys. That's going to bother me the rest of this video. On the front of the unit, you do have a sight gauge right here that's going to allow you to see how much fuel is in here. This does have a 5-liter capacity, and again, that's all built in here. You have your fuel cap right up here. This is an all-in-one unit. You don't need a separate fuel tank or anything like that. You do have 2 little folding handles on the top as well. And they keep this thing really clean. Like that's about all you're gonna see. You have these handles, you have your fuel, You have your fuel gauge, and then you have the little screen on the back. That's about it. Because this is a portable generator, to test it, we're going to test it in probably the most portable fashion possible. Understandably, if you're watching my review on this, you're likely going to install it in an RV, so you'll have a direct hardwired power source, but we're going to go ahead and use the little 12-volt adapter here. Get that plugged into a portable power bank, get it plugged into the heater there. Go ahead and cut my power bank on. All right, we got it turned on. And this one actually shows a fair bit of information. It looks like it's trying to show when the electrode's on, the heater core. Need to open the garage door before I fire this thing up, but it looks like it's kind of already started that process here. So fuel pump just kicked on, which you can hear from the clicking. A lot of these diesel heaters have that really noisy clicking fuel pump there, but if it's in a compartment, you're likely not even going to hear that thing. So it shows it's trying to ignite. So we're about a minute in here. This thing just got roaring. I heard the thing ignite. It lit on its first try. That was a big one. Another thing I'll note here is on a lot of these cheaper diesel heaters, if you will, I end up getting a large plume of white smoke when they first ignite. Not the cleanest burn in the world, and that's usually on brand new heaters. This one was very clean. As this got a little warm, I'm not sure if the camera picked it up, you can see a little bit of like the manufacturing oil burning off the exhaust. So I have the noise canceling off on my mic. This thing is running full blast right now. It's completely ramped up, and I'm hoping you can hear how loud it is. No louder or quieter than any other heater, which is anticipated. Again, this is going to be buried away in a compartment or outside the RV anyway. You're going to hear, the blower coming through the exhaust here. There is a little bit of a muffler to try and quiet it down, but it does make a difference, but it's still going to make noise. It's something that's running. As far as heat goes, this thing is pumping out some heat. I'll give it that. As far as the blower goes, it's significantly more than some of the cheaper Chinese diesel heaters I've reviewed. I will give it that. You're only going to get so much out of one of these. Again, it's not going to be a big 35,000 BTU unit, but it is pushing out an impressive amount of heat. Again, I think I'm more impressed with how clean the burn is, and maybe they're doing something a little bit different because on their little control module, if you will, they do rate the efficiency rating. Like it says that it's 99% efficient right now. When it first turned on, it was at like 20% or something like that, and it slowly climbed up. So as that diesel burn gets hotter and gets more efficient, I'm sure that's what it's basing it off of. I don't know if they're just using like an O2 sensor or fuel air mixture sensor in there or something to determine that. But she is burning clean, she's burning strong. And again, the heat that this thing is pumping out is more than supplemental. Again, they're not 35,000 BTU, which is what your RV propane furnace is rated at. But if you don't need that much heat, this would be a great replacement, or if you're just looking for supplemental heat. On the note of adjusting it, I remember I told you, this is mounted to the furnace, or heater I should say, so you don't want to have to walk outside to change the temperature or turn it down or turn it on. That is where the included remote comes in, and go ahead and test that now. It just started to ramp down as I pressed off. So these diesel heaters, just like your propane furnace, are going to have a cool down phase. They're going to cool the burner down so they'll stay running here, but it definitely just ramped its operation down. And as we turned it down, it actually definitely started to smoke a little bit, like I was telling you some of those other heaters typically do, but this one only decided to do it on the cool down here, I guess. But that actually wasn't a lot. It's already kind of starting to stop here. So on the cool down cycle, you have maybe 15 seconds of a little bit of white smoke coming out. Pretty clean burn. Again, I've reviewed a few of these diesel heaters. Most of the Chinese diesel heaters tend to be about the same. You open them up, no matter what brand is on them, they're all about the same. This one actually stood out, which is why I wanted to do a full review on this thing. And after reviewing it, I can confirm it's got a nice, efficient, clean burn. I like the setup. I like the case on the outside. On the note of the case, I can keep my hands all the way around this thing, even after running this thing. The blower fan in here is fantastic because this thing is really pumping out heat. That's where I found some of those diesel heaters to lack a little bit, is even though they're producing nice hot air, they're just not really pumping it. And to try and fill an RV with heat, you do need some CFMs backed up behind there and pushing that heat into the RV. Operation-wise, it's about as noisy as, again, literally every other diesel heater on the market. One thing I will say was a little quieter on this one, and I don't know if it's because they're encasing it in here or they've got something else around it, is the fuel pump. The dreaded tick from these diesel heater fuel pumps is what annoys a lot of people. And I will say, in the beginning when it started up, yes, I could, you hear that tick, 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 tick. But as it got running, it actually got much quieter to a point where I almost couldn't hear it, and I'm standing right here next to it. So if this thing's buried in a compartment, you're likely not going to hear it at all. This thing's been a pretty quiet operation. One last test I do want to do with this is efficiency. Now, they have their little thing on the controller here that tells you it's 99% efficient right now or whatever it is. I don't know if they're referring to how efficient the heat is or power versus how much heat it's putting out. What I want to see is at full blast and during startup, how many watts this thing is actually consuming. Since I have it plugged into a portable power station right now that actually reads that stuff, it will actually be able to give me that readout. So let's see what this thing draws. So we're going to turn it on, and we'll actually use the remote to do that. And we'll see what this thing draws. All right, so it's in its initial startup phase here. And we're at 10 watts. The number's really small on the screen, so I don't know if my camera is going to pick that up. 15 watts, 18 watts. All right, with just the blower fan on, it looks like it's settling down at about 25 watts. The electrode just kicked on. We jumped up to 39, we're at 40 watts. That's probably at 50 watts. That's probably gonna keep climbing as that electrode gets a little warmer. And right now, they're even saying it's 0% efficient because there's no heat being produced yet while it's trying to start up. We're at 105 watts, and I'm gonna guess that's gonna be kind of what it's gonna float at until we see ignition, and then it will probably climb right back down. And then once it gets at its full capacity, it's blowing heat, we'll check back and see what that says. We're about a minute in, we're still sitting at about 104 watts. Again, that glow plug needs to be heated up. Fuel pump just kicked on. I can hear the ticking. We peaked at 130 watts there for just a second, and now we're back down to 102. I can now hear the burner. We're at 104. All right, I've let this thing run it's been about 10 minutes now. It's currently in the middle of its massive heating cycle running at full bore, and it's consuming about 35 watts. And right now the screen here claims it is at 99% efficiency, so that tells me that that's about where it's at. Well, I don't know, because we actually just hit about 43 watts. So this thing is kind of all over the place, if you will, as far as its resting wattage, but it is fairly low. Again, 45, even if we base it off of 45 watts running full bore here, that's still pretty efficient. So just shut it down. It's got that little plume of white smoke again. It's the only time I really do see it. The last few things I'll mention to you guys here is in the user manual, this thing does have every error code that this thing could possibly have and kind of walks you through what could be wrong. And it's actually fairly easy to read, written in plain English. There's also plenty of things about how to set the timer. You can have this thing set up on a schedule so it comes on and off at certain times. If you don't want to go with, how much heat, you can go with how often the heat's coming on. Now we actually have to see how this thing does long term. I might hook this thing up in here and use it for heat in here for a little bit and give you guys kind of an update based on, a little bit of usage. But after today, just going through this thing, for the price versus some of the other Chinese diesel heaters out there, yes, this one is a little bit more expensive. Do I think it's worth that extra expense? I actually do. This thing seems to be pretty well built. Runs on 12 or 24 volt. It includes all the different power adapters. It includes everything you need for the most part to install it in an RV. You might need something to get the ductwork or something installed in your RV. Again, those are all going to be individual situations. But again, after a review, the Bouge RV diesel heater is actually a pretty decent diesel heater. If you guys want to check out more specs on it or more information, I will leave a link down in the description for you guys. In the meantime, if you guys want to see some more RV tech tips, tricks, and even some tutorials, make sure you guys press that subscribe button.